Okay, my apologies. There's one more Pentecost that I discounted before Chislev 5, which is when we must have the third fire sign. And that's the 2NC Pentecost Heshvan 21. The reason we discounted it is there's already been a fire sign at the 2NC Pentecost, the first fire sign of 1 Kings 18 and of 2 Kings 1 in Israel on Mount Carmel, 2010 Chislev 21. It was actually Chislev 20 to Chislev 23, and Chislev 21 is the late 2NC Pentecost, which is the chief of that 50 count. The chief of the 50 is not, well, an exclusive chief of the 50. It's not part of the 50 count, but it's still part of the Pentecost, so it's the late Pentecost, and that was the fulfillment of the first fire sign. And we thought, having sent that 50 in the symbolism of 2 Kings 1, why would we send it again? But it says a following 50. It's a very ambiguous term. It could mean that the 50 follows immediately after some previous 50, and therefore it's just a count, in 50s. It could mean that one Pentecost follows closely after another, I suppose. Or it could mean it's the same Pentecost, but in the following year, which we now take it to mean. So we can use Heshvan 21. So in the case of the second 50 that's sent in 2 Kings 1, Elijah spoke to them, meaning the chief and the 50, and said, if I'm a man of the true God, let fire come down from the heavens and consume you and your 50. So he was actually speaking to the chief of the 50, because he said you and your 50, you singular that is, and thou and thy 50, and yet he's speaking to them, which means that the chief must be part of the 50, whereas in the first fire signs he speaks to him with the first 50 that's sent. So the chief is exclusive to the 50, but he's inclusive to the 50 in the second fire sign. So the first fire sign on Mount Carmel was at the late 2NC Pentecost on Chislev 21, and the second is at the regular 2NC Pentecost on Heshvan 21. We discounted it because we couldn't see how we'd send the same 50 twice, but if you send the following Pentecost, it could be just another 50 count a year later. So it's not the same 50, it's a year later. It's actually the same 50 days of the calendar, but in a different year. That's the last remaining Pentecost it could possibly be before Chislev 5. So we've now moved the second fire sign. It didn't happen on Heshvan 14, which was the 28th Laodicean solar Balian Pentecost. It's happening instead on the 2NC Pentecost on Heshvan 21, which is 7 days later. So it's happening Tuesday, Wednesday this coming week, which is Tuesday the 14th of November, Wednesday the 15th of November. And incidentally, we now have a better understanding of the lightning shining from the eastern parts to the western parts. Plural, parts. East in Greek means east or sunrise, because the sun rises in the east, and west means west or sunset. And the eastern bomb is the UK bomb, which is east of America and New York, and the western bomb is the American New York bomb. So there's east to west, but it's a plural, so we take the second meaning as well. And the UK bomb is at sunrise, whereas the US bomb is at sunset. So both possible meanings of eastern apply to the UK bomb. It's east of New York and it happens at sunrise, and the American bomb is west of London and happens at sunset, both possible meanings of western. Now, the beautiful thing about this interpretation is that Laodicea got going at their Pentecost, Heshvan 11. The Pentecost counted from Elul 22, first fruits after Elul 14, the Laodicean Passover, when some of them got killed, the firstborn, because they weren't in the Passover house. And that caused an escape, which ended the contest day at least, on Elul 21, which was the last day of cakes, the festival of escape for Laodicea, at which time they somehow escaped from the watchtower. They didn't come to see us, they're not part of the watchtower, they were effectively in the Sinai Peninsula, not in the land of Egypt, but still controlled by Egypt. And then when their Pentecost arrived 50 days later on Heshvan 11, they got in the boat of John 6:19 to row 25 or 30 stadia, which would take them inclusively to Chislev 5 when Jesus turns up, or to Chislev 10 when Jesus turns up. And they met Jesus after 25 and 30 stadia. Jesus turns up in the form of the descended 1NC kings on Chislev 5, and he turns up in the form of the third presence by us baptizing 1NC reserves on Chislev 10. And what's more, the Laodicean Pentecost was in fact a Adamic autonomous congregation Pentecost, because the autonomous congregation of Zoar begins in this boat. So that was the beginning of the Zoar autonomous congregation. I mean, where their mind must be is that they don't want to be in the Watchtower, and neither do they want to be in Zoar. They don't, but they know they don't want to be in the Watchtower, and they know they want to go somewhere. They want to find the right place to be, but they don't know how to get here, or they don't think that we're the right place to be, but they're looking, and that begins the autonomous congregation. I think it's more likely they know exactly where we are, but they fed up with us and they're fed up with the Watchtower, and they want to be independent, and why not? Better than being idolaters of the Watchtower. So that step kicks them off. Then we are Zoar, this church, but we are also the church of the Second New Covenant. So we get kicked off, as they did at their Pentecost, we get kicked off at the 2NC Pentecost by the second fire sign, and we get kick-started at the late Zoar Pentecost on Chislev 5 by the third fire sign. So you've got 3 Pentecosts, one for Laodicea, one for the 2NC, and one for Zoar. And if you like, the two halves of Zoar, not that they're halves, they're a lot smaller than us, the two parts of Zoar are the autonomous congregation, which begins at the Pentecost of the Laodicean Pentecost, Heshvan 11. Then there's the main part of the congregation, which is 2NC run, and that is kicked off Heshvan 21 by the second fire sign. And then the whole of Zoar together, once we've joined up, in fact we join up on Chislev 5 when the boat docks at our land, but they don't get out of the boat. They remain in it, but they're attached to our land. So when we're joined together, then we have the shared common Pentecost of Zoar. So it makes sense that you install and kickstart both parties, and then you kickstart the whole church, the union of those two parties. So Chislev, as I said, 21 is November 14, November 15. We still think that Satan must have repented somehow on Heshvan 14, don't know how, but we think he must have, because that's the end of the 1290 days from Nisan 14, 2014, when he was passed over, which is 2300 evenings and mornings after 9/11, Gregorian. So that seems to be a fixed date of some kind of repentance of Satan, which is really significant, but how it manifests itself we don't know yet. So that's when we have to move the second fire sign to Heshvan 21, and there really aren't any more Pentecostal dates after then before the third fire sign at the last possible Zoar Pentecostal date, the late Zoar Pentecost 2017 Chislev 5, which is November 28-29. Thank you.